What up racer, ItsJerone here. Welcome back to a new league racing video here on F1 2021, and we're back again with already the 9th round of the FRL season. Today we're here in Texas in the United States of America, and this will be my first league race ever around this place. And historically in my career modes I'm not really a fan of this track, but I guess I'll have to see how that works out online. As you can see, we're underway with qualifying, and it didn't really get off to the best start because I spun on my medium tires here. Anyways, we're looking at the standings and we're already past the halfway point of the season. This is round 9 out of 14, and as you can see, I'm still on the hunt for my first podium in this league. If you didn't see the previous 2 or 3 races I did in this league, then you might not know that I was quite close to the podium a couple of times. Anyway, since I messed up my banker lap, I had to go check here in the race director which time I set, and it is a 37.4, and I think in a few seconds we will switch to the times that have been posted in this qualifying session so far. And as you can see, the cutoff for P10 is currently a 32.2. And realistically, I thought I didn't have the pace to qualify in the top 5, so I would rather start outside of the top 10 so I can have free tire choice, start on medium compound tire and see what happens. So in order to qualify outside of the top 10, I can at max improve by 5.2 seconds. And ideally you want to be as close as possible to that 5.2 seconds, but you don't want to go over it because then you will probably end up in P10. So as you can see, I also messed up my first run on the soft compound, but fortunately, or I planned it such that I would have enough time and enough fuel to start another lap. So that's exactly what we are going to do now. Currently on the start-finish straight, heading down into turn 1, which is probably the most difficult corner whilst driving in cockpit cam of all tracks. The apex is just completely blind, you literally cannot see anything, so it really is just down to muscle memory, as we're currently going through the assist, taking it quite cleanly. You want to have as little steering lock as possible, and you also don't want to overheat your tires, and I think I managed to do quite well in this first sector. And as you can see, delta in the top right is of course not very representative at this stage, because my medium lap was 5.2, or well, more than 5 seconds off the pace, let's say it that way, as we're currently on the back straight, quite a long straight, which is also good for overtaking around this place. Then heading into the last tricky sector of this circuit. It's really technical and it's quite a challenge. I really like it, and yeah, just try to keep it as clean as possible, as we're currently going through right-hander, which is completely flat. And watch the top right now, because even at this stage I didn't know how much I was up on my delta. As we're now going through the final corner, I'm 5.5 seconds up and I need to be 5.2 seconds up at max, so I managed to drop it down to 5 seconds, and as you can see, I am indeed P11, so the strategy has worked here. I think if I had set a normal time, I probably would have been a 31.8 or 31.9, so I would have been in P9 most likely. But now, due to me starting 2 places lower on the grid, I will have the free tire choice, and I think that will be quite influential in this race. So it is Sylvan on pole, with Ginger in second place and Kazizel in third for this race. As we're now obviously getting to the strategy screen, this is exactly what I was planning to do. I want to do a medium soft, and that is without any safety car interference, because the soft compound tires around here are the most optimal race tire. And the first stint is probably the most difficult stint if you would start on the softs, because due to the higher fuel loads you have to carry more energy around the corners and it will put more heat into your tires. So that's also another reason why I opted for mediums. As the 5 red lights are out and away we go. Simple Eggs and Yogurt behind us, Terror and 3XL in front of us, and we're choosing the outside line here. And I'm not sure what happened to one of the cars on the inside probably, but we've gained 1 position heading into turn 1. Then there's quite a bit of heavy braking here as someone on the right is completely off, and I didn't notice at the time, but I'm pretty sure Terror got a bit of damage here as we're currently still heading through the first sector. Terror runs a bit wide there. I was quite slow on the traction as well, and heading into the hairpin you can see I caught up quite a lot. Terror braking quite early as once again I have to use a bit of a runoff area here because I got hit by quite a lot of understeer. And of course I didn't really practice too much for this race. Ahead of this race, I think 2 days prior to it, I did a co-op career mode around the USA, so I sort of knew the lines around this track again, braking points approximately, etc. But you can see here Terror is really slow, so I was contemplating about sending one down the inside. He actually leaves plenty of room, but then I just get a bit of an oversteer moment on that exit there, and you can just tell Terror has a lot of damage, and I have to pick up a warning for track limits as I go around the outside, and then once again using a bit of runoff here. And I'm not sure if you've noticed there, but someone spun out right behind me, and I didn't even notice that at the time, as I currently have a soft runner of FRL Robin quite close behind, and decided to let him go because softs and mediums have such a massive discrepancy around here in terms of peak performance. So at this stage the soft compound is so much better than the mediums, as that's already my second warning for track limits now. As we're cutting back to the start of the race, and you can just see just picking my way through here using the outside line as it got really crowded there at the apex of turn 1. So it probably was the right line to take, and there was plenty of side-by-side action up ahead, and I think Terra was quite unlucky there, picked up a bit of damage, as we're currently looking at that replay as well. Going down the inside, getting a snap of oversteer which hampered my exit, and then I went around the outside, which the camera doesn't show at this stage. And then you can see the Mercedes behind. I think he tried to do the right-hander at full throttle and then just got a massive oversteer moment, couldn't correct it, and went sideways. And I think he was only like 1 or 2 meters behind me at the point where he was sideways. So I think I got quite lucky there that I did not get collected in that accident, as we're currently heading into the third lap, and I was not quite on the pace at this stage and decided to let Yannick go because he was clearly faster at this point. Then heading on later into the lap, you can see Yannick really was on the pace because he's already challenging FRL Robin at the end of the back straight. They are wheel banging, going through that left-hander. Only marginally enough room was left there. Then Yannick defending the inside, but he runs a bit deep, so Robin goes underneath, and this time space was given on the outside for Yannick as they're going side by side through this right-hander. And the same can be said for this left-hander, as once again it's a bit messy here with a lot of contact. Then Yannick goes for a switchback, sends it down the inside and pushes Robin out wide. So Yannick is at this stage ahead of Robin, but I could tell coming off that exit that they were going to continue their fight, so I decided not to use too much ERS. And right at the apex of turn 1, a safety car's been called out, and they're still going at it. They still don't want to give up the positions, and I think in the end the game decided to give it to Yannick. As quite surprisingly, Yannick actually decided to come into the pit lane after only 4 laps of running on those medium tires. Of course, everyone who started on the softs sees this as a prime opportunity to either put on a new set of softs or go to mediums as they want to make their 2 stops work. And this is of course where my strategy comes into play, and all of a sudden I'm at the lead of the race with Blue Racer in second and then Yogurt in third. So the top 3 hasn't pitted yet. Then it's Shizuka Zizzle in fourth with Sylvan, who decided to put on softs in P5 at the moment. So I'm gonna lead this restart, and I didn't want to make a mess of it and wait really long, so I actually decided to go coming off of the exit of this right-hander, and there we go. So I have to be careful at this stage because I don't want to pick up any more warnings ideally, but on the other hand I still need to push because I want to keep those who started on softs behind me. And I think it was quite a good scenario for me that Blue Racer and Yogurt were still in the way, also on quite old compound tires, and unfortunately they got passed quite quickly. Especially Sylvan had a really good restart, went up from P5 to P2 in that lap, and then here on the exit for the back straight he's already right up my gearbox, so there's obviously no point in defending this. Sylvan had really good pace and it would have been impossible to keep him behind for much longer. If I had really good pace I probably would have defended this a lot harder, because later on in the race that's where I'll probably catch Sylvan again. And yeah, if you're really good on your race pace then probably it would have been better to defend that, but for me I didn't feel like I was that fast, and 3 laps later it was Kazizzle that caught up to me first of the medium runners at this stage. So I probably have like 12 or 13% more wear on my medium tires than those guys around me. And yeah, to be fair, I was quite comfortably keeping up their pace. Of course they were a little bit faster, but I didn't feel like my natural pace was that much worse than Kazizzle, Chilu and everyone else behind. So I probably could have sent one down the inside of Kazizzle again, but I think our overall goal is also not to let Sylvan escape that much. Anyway, so we're cutting on to the next lap and managed to keep Chilu behind for a little bit longer, but this time, as you can see, I actually turned off my DRS to make sure he got past before the braking zone so he could take the ideal racing line and we would all not lose too much time. Then lap 14, you can see I still didn't come into the pit lane, and you can also see that a McLaren has put it into the wall on the left hand side coming off of the exit of turn 1, and that results in a safety car. So due to that first safety car I could just save quite a bit of tire wear also on those mediums, and at that point I had sort of decided I would do a one stop from that point onwards, especially considering my race position at this stage. I'm in P4, and this safety car was probably timed at the worst moment for me, because going onto hards is not really an option around USA. Hards are so slow, and I'll cut back to my story in a few moments, but as you can see, Sylvan in the Mercedes had passed the safety car by accident, and I think the game really gave him little amount of time to return that position to the safety car, and he's actually been disqualified from this session. So the man who was looking most likely to win this race is now disqualified from the session, so that means I get promoted back up to 3rd place. Anyways, I was in a story telling that hard tires are quite slow around this track, and I wasn't exactly sure how long softs could go. I thought they would like last about 12 laps, and that's exactly what I have to do now. So I probably thought they would reach like 65% by the end of this race, but as I said, I had to make sure I used this pit stop from the, well, basically the free pit stop from the safety car, otherwise I would fall way too far behind. As the restart is underway, and you can see Kazizzle sending one down the inside of Chilu, and he gets past heading into turn 1. So basically I have it all to lose after this safety car, because I'm probably on the worst compound to make it to the end of this race, as only Zach is also on soft compounds. Basically everyone else is on mediums at this stage, and I have to get past Heyoo and Kazizel as early as possible, because ideally I want to pull away from these guys, and then later on in the race they will probably pull back the gap, as I ran really deep actually into that right-hander. That wasn't optimal. I think I got caught out a bit by Heyoo and Kazizel battling, that I sort of forgot where my braking point was. But fortunately no harm's done, no wing damage, and I think what you see here is just lifting off in this right-hander a little bit to save some tire wear. That's what made me quite competitive still in this race, as for now of course in these first laps I definitely have a grip advantage over Kazizel, as in the meanwhile Kazizel lost that position to Heyoo on that battling on the previous lap. As we're now cutting on to lap 18, the exit of the back straight, and no Jeff, I don't want another strategy option. I want to finish my race on this soft compound tires as we make them work, going down the inside of Kazizel, and that was quite an easy move. He didn't make it too difficult for me, as I defend the inside a little bit because I didn't want him to send it back up the inside, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't planning on doing that anyways, as Heyoo actually nearly got out of our DRS range for a brief moment, but he made a bit of a mistake into that left-hander, ran a bit too deep, and DRS detection point is already right here, so we're easily into his DRS, or actually I don't think DRS has been enabled this lap yet, so it didn't even matter. But the DRS detection point for this start-finish straight is actually quite early. It's like literally right after the right-hander already. Anyways, we're currently going through the S's, and you can see the tire grip is quite large, as unfortunately I cut the left-hander a little bit, and that results in me getting a 3-second time penalty. I wasn't particularly happy with this one, but of course it's also difficult to keep it clean for 28 laps, especially when you're already on 2 warnings at lap 2. Fortunately though, I'm not the only one with time penalties. It's also Kazizel on 3 seconds, Zach behind on 3 seconds, and currently the only one within 3 seconds that doesn't have a time penalty is Terra Racer, so I'll have to make sure I basically finish at least 3 seconds ahead of him, as Heyoo is still leading this race and made quite a bit of a meal of that final corner, and that meant I couldn't really launch an attack here down into turn 1 on Heyoo, so we'll have to stay close in this first sector and make sure I get a good exit for the back straight in order to overtake him. So we're gonna stay on board here in the S's. You can really tell tire grip is still definitely in my favor. Soft compound is quite a strong race tire around here, or in fact the best race tire, but when you have to do quite a long stint, in this case 12-13 laps, the medium compound will be the most ideal one over the whole stint. So managed to stay quite close, and you can see the exit was not exactly optimal, but it also wasn't too bad, and I think Heyoo also isn't defending this, as he probably wasn't using that much ERS, and I'm easily ahead heading into this little left-hander. And we're actually gonna stay on board for the rest of the lap, because this will also be the fastest lap I will post during this race. So I'm gonna use quite some ERS even on this exit here, make sure I get a good launch. Then of course completely keeping it completely flat now through the right-hander even in the race. Then sending it through this left-hander and braking nice and early for the last corner. Then on the exit, once again, use a bit of ERS, and it's a 34.4, which is also currently the fastest lap of the race, and I was quite happy with that. But I couldn't break the DRS from the cars behind, which is a little bit of a problem, because, well, ideally I need to pull away in order to make sure I make the most of my tires. One good thing though is that Terror Racer actually dropped out of DRS of me, Chilu and Kazizzle, so that will probably help in terms of extending the gap to Terror Racer, as on that previous lap I was still using quite a bit of ERS to defend down the straight, but this time I actually decided not to use that much, and you can see Chilu was actually willing to stay behind. I think he also realized it was probably the best for us if at this stage I just let this train for a little bit, because I still had better race pace on these tires. And I think lap 23 here, this is probably the cutoff point where mediums will be faster than soft compound. Chilu is still staying behind for another lap. As you could tell, I wasn't really using ERS down this back straight anymore, because I couldn't do that for the rest of the race. And lap 24, this is when Chilu decided it was time for him to be leading again. And what's also good is that we have pulled away from Terror Racer, who in fact got overtaken by Jeroen and Zach. And also Zach is currently on even more time penalties, and Jeroen also has a 3 seconds. So Terror is now more than 5 seconds behind, and he's the first car to not have a time penalty at this point. As we're currently on the penultimate lap of the race already, I managed to stay in Chilu's DRS, save up a little bit of energy, as we're currently on about 25%. And here down the back straight, I was contemplating of going down the inside of Chilu, but actually I left the door open here for Kazizzle, who manages to get that move done on me. I was, well, sort of expecting, or at least a scenario in my head said, well, this could happen if I don't attack Chilu. And that's exactly what happened, as Kazizzle's in the meanwhile also on 9 seconds of penalties. So I wasn't too bothered about defending against him, and I just wanted to make sure I would finish as far as possible ahead of the cars behind. Make sure I don't get caught out by anyone who doesn't have time penalties behind. And on this lap, you could just tell my soft compound tires are absolutely shot. There was no way I could keep up with Chilu and Kazizzle, as they are now fighting for the race lead, or at least the race lead on track, as Kazizzle makes a move down the inside. And I think also Chilu wasn't particularly bothered about defending really hard here. And Kazizzle, of course, wants to extend the gap to everyone behind as much as possible, because he's of course on 9 seconds of time penalties. For my tires, they're on 55% for the fronts, so you could tell they weren't in a great state anymore. I was actually expecting even more tire wear, to be around like 60 to 65%. But more importantly, this is our first podium in FRL.
Yes, boys, ring ding ding. Tough race, but well managed.
And it's actually a second place finish due to Kazizzle having so many time penalties. And yeah, I think I managed this race really well. First of all, by deciding to qualify in P11, having the free tire choice. Then the first safety car really worked in my favor, I think. And yeah, the one stop was probably the optimal strategy here with the 2 safety cars we had during this race. Ideally, I would have wanted the safety car to come out like 1 or 2 laps, or the second one to come out 1 or 2 laps later, because then I would have had more potential to fight for the race win on the soft compound tires. But overall, I can't be too disappointed with this one. The standings here actually are glitched a little bit, because Kazizzle and Terror Racer left before the last car finished the race, and they both received 20 seconds of time penalties after they crossed the line, so they will get removed. So the running order is Chilu winning this race, I'm in second, then Jeroen in third, with Zach in fourth, I'm pretty sure, and then due to the 9 second time penalty, Kazizzle is in P5 and Terror in P6. Overall, it actually was quite an enjoyable race. I wasn't sure about my pace heading into this race around the USA. I've never done a race before around this place in terms of an actual league race, and I think for my first league race here, I can be quite satisfied. It was quite a fun race, both in terms of on-track battles and strategy. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. And if finishing on the podium in FRL doesn't deserve a thumbs up, then I don't know what does. And I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.